Once upon a time, in a kingdom blanketed by snow, a queen sat by the window, watching the falling snowflakes. With a deep sigh, she made a wish. "If I have a daughter," she said, "let her skin be as white as snow, her cheeks as red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony." The gods heard her wish, and soon after, just as she had envisioned, a little girl was born. The girl was named Snow White because her skin was as white as snow, her cheeks as red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. However, shortly after the birth, the queen passed away. The king, deep in sorrow, remarried in an attempt to ease his loneliness. His new queen was known for her extraordinary beauty, but she was also arrogant and wicked at heart. Every day, she would look into her magical mirror and ask, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror would always reply, "You are the fairest, my queen." This answer would soothe the queen's vanity and give her peace of mind. However, as Snow White grew older, her beauty began to overshadow the queen's. One day, when the queen asked her mirror the same question, it replied, "You are beautiful, my queen, but Snow White is more beautiful than you." Enraged, the queen's anger flared, and she decided that Snow White must be eliminated. She summoned the kingdom's most trusted hunter and ordered him, "Take Snow White deep into the forest and kill her. Bring me her heart as proof." The hunter, bound by duty, took Snow White into the forest. But as he looked into her innocent eyes, his conscience moved him. Unable to harm her, he let her go. "Run away now," he urged her. "The queen wants to kill you. Get away from here." Snow White, with tears in her eyes, fled deep into the forest. Meanwhile, the hunter killed a deer and took its heart to the queen. When the queen saw it, she felt relieved, unaware that Snow White was still alive. Snow White wandered through the forest, searching for shelter, until she came across a small cottage. She went inside and found that everything inside was miniature: 7 small chairs, a small table, and 7 small beds. She was so exhausted that she sat down, ate a bit of food, and lay down on one of the beds to rest. She fell into a deep sleep. When night came, the 7 dwarfs returned from the mines. They were surprised to find an unfamiliar figure in their house. As they looked at her, they were enchanted by her beauty and innocence. They didn't want to disturb her, so they waited. When Snow White woke up and saw them, she was initially frightened, but they approached her kindly. She explained everything to them, and they, feeling pity for her, allowed her to stay in their home. However, they made one condition: "You can stay with us, but you must help with the housework." Snow White agreed and began living with them. Meanwhile, the queen, having learned from her magic mirror that Snow White was still alive, became even more furious and devised a new plan. Disguised as an old woman, she went to the cottage. Snow White, not recognizing her evil intentions, opened the door and let her in. The old woman showed Snow White a beautiful ribbon, saying, "This ribbon will make you even more beautiful." When Snow White tried it on, the woman tied it so tightly that Snow White fainted. Fortunately, the dwarfs returned early and removed the ribbon, saving her. The queen, frustrated by her failure, created a new plan. This time, she disguised herself as an old woman and made a poisoned comb. She went to the cottage again, and Snow White, unaware of the danger, allowed the woman to comb her hair. As soon as the comb touched her hair, Snow White fell unconscious and collapsed. The dwarfs were unable to save her this time, and she appeared to be dead. The dwarfs placed Snow White in a glass coffin and stood guard by her side. Days later, a prince who was traveling through the forest saw Snow White's beauty. He was so moved by her that he kissed her. At that moment, the poisoned apple piece lodged in her throat was dislodged, and Snow White woke up. She opened her eyes and began to live again. The prince, deeply in love with her, asked her to marry him. Snow White agreed, and they had a grand wedding. The evil queen, for all her wickedness, paid the price for her actions. Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after. This is the original story of Snow White, translated into English and presented in a flowing narrative style.